Welcome back to another episode of 1530s by NGP Digital, where we ease, socialize, and create new virtual office norms that are important in every group developments. This week, we tackle the power of word of mouth and what makes things catch on. There. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So our topic for today is about word of mouth. Um, this is from the module of viral marketing and how to craft contagious content. So before we talk about the recipes of how to make stories stick, right? So yun yung be simple, ganun. Actually, there. So, ito na yung mga naging topics natin for the past few weeks. So, again, as mentioned, no, the first one is recipe of stories. So, if you remember those 4 or 5 items, so first one is be simple, tell people one thing. If you remember yung envelope, right, yung MacBook Air that can fit in an envelope. So, if you tell people one thing, be simple, right, the more likely that your story or your content would stick into memory. The next one is be unexpected. If you remember yung panda cheese, right? So you violate the routines. Yeah, it's unexpected. That's why it stick better, right? Then number 3 is be concrete. Show, don't tell, right? Our example here, if you remember, is still the MacBook Air that can fit in an envelope. So it's concrete. You know how small an envelope is, so now you have a sense of how small is your MacBook or how skinny it is, right? And then lastly, emotional. So I've mentioned that certain emotions can trigger people to take action, but it's not all emotions that trigger actions. We are actually diving more deeper into that conversation later. And then our second episode, right, we talked about communications, the fundamentals of communications, and how you should rethink communications as a social structure, and it's not just a mere transmission model, because it does not simply look into or take into account the complexities of communication. So that's what you do. You that's the second theory that we talked about, the social communications as social construction, where we don't necessarily assume that our messages are going to be understood the way we want it, similar to the intentions of certain tools. Like our example here is Instagram, right? And our very own client, which is Carrie Mo, they have a different interpretation. The users or the consumers have a different interpretation of the brand, and that's what we actually harness in our campaigns, in our content strategy, and also the importance of acknowledging many different hidden forces that surround communications. Like, for example, your non-verbal communications, the context of groups, the context of hybrid groups, civil groups, and a lot of other contexts, right? Hopefully you remember all those things, but definitely you can check out our recording if you don't remember, right?
Yeah.
But there is actually a common driving force that ties these concepts together, right? The theory of communication, the recipes of contagious marketing, contagious content. The driving force really is social influence, if you agree, right? It's really based on society or social really interacting with other people. So meaning content, understanding, recipes, they don't just simply exist, right? There is no formula to communications. There is no formula to creating content, contagious content, right? If you agree.
Yep.
But all of these things, it's like I mentioned, it always depends, right? It depends on your social influences, and that meanings they are brought about, or they are brought about by common understandings within our social worlds that we live on, and that we have also as individuals we have different social worlds. So right, so that means that we have different interpretations in certain things, right? And then We also talked about how content may have different interpretations depending on the hidden forces, like I mentioned, the context, relationship levels, right? So, yun. You can share actually some learnings, or if you have any anecdotes that you come across for the past weeks that really resembles our learnings of communications and contagious marketing. This is the time to do it before we jump into another uh, course. So, do you have any? Do you have any? Ako siguro for my case, kasi as mentioned, I have been very interested in podcasting, right? So I have come across this podcast episode where these two people were talking about uh, quarantine, and they want they want the people in charge to open hardware stores during the quarantine because they're struggling daw to do things that they want to do. Because sabi nila, if there is a time to make home adjustments, to be productive at home, this is the time to do it. But how can they do it if the hardware stores are closed? Right. So yun yung bungad ng conversation of that. But
Wait,
I
sorry. Tapos gusto nila mag-open ng hardware?
yes, and I mean gusto nilang i-open, I guess, the government or the people in charge. They want a certain uh, hardware stores to be open for them to buy the things that they need for their home improvements, right?
Okay.
Coming from watching the news, looking at my social media feed, right? Um, why are they talking about these things, and should the government even prioritize those things? So I was thinking that to myself that wow, what such privilege, right? And that's their home improvement. But also, um, I thought about it more, and as much as I want to be disgusted, kumbaga, or to be offended, the buzzword offended, as alam mo yan, as a millennial in the internet, I can be offended. But also, I thought about it, but I was also speaking in that level of privilege. I have that level of privilege. That's why I'm watching them. Diba, I could stream their podcast because I have that level of privilege. So, I actually agree. I want to go to a hardware store also. But in my thinking, right, I could comment somewhere there that why the hell are you talking about this stuff? There are a lot more important things to talk about. But you kind of sit also like, is this the right conversation I'm supposed to have, right? Attack their privilege just because I have a different notion of what should be prioritized, right? So I think maraming cons that come into play because, as you know, certain influencers, they know their audiences, right? There are a lot of tools, there are a lot of analytics to know kung sino yung audience mo. So sometimes you tailor fit your content to fit the audience that you have. Right? So yun yung napoprovide na convenience, napoprovide na insights and data of certain platforms like your YouTube, ganyan, wherever you put your content into. But so in that case, in that anecdote, yes, I am their audience. I'm part of that demographic, that age group that they want to target, the interest that they want to target. That's why I come across that podcast in the first place, diba? But what is stopping the people like me to 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 kind of think negatively of their podcast or their topic in mind, diba? There's nothing, right? If you, diba, I can be offended and I can still be your market at the same time. You know what I mean? Like, there's no stopping people and sharing what they know, even if they are very misinformed, right? especially now that your content is very public, diba? So the answer is there's really nothing stopping me to comment about your privilege, even though I have that privilege myself. So as a communicator, as mentioned, as brands, as marketing people, no, it's always important to know your audience, right? The demographics, their interests, their age groups, right? The language that they speak, so that you can tailor your content.
Mm-mm.
It's a very simple concept, diba? Parang, I mean, it's like that. It's marketing. But there is still those concepts, or there is still those uh, loopholes, for the lack of a better term, loopholes that would enable these people to not agree with you, even though you tailor fit your content for them. So that's that's how you rethink communications. Really, that people would misinterpret the things that you say in different levels,
Mm-mm.
depending on what social worlds they live in, right? There. So, especially now that you are in a public context, right? So, it blurs the lines of having context, no? So, if your context is, for example, yun, yung podcast, it's speaking to the followers na millennials, na young professionals that has that live in a condo, live in, you know, yung may level of privilege. Kapag napanood yun ng someone who is struggling now, so for example, yun nga, wala na siyang work, for example, tanggal siya sa
Mm-mm.
trabaho, siya makapagbigay ng money to the family, to the rest of the family. What's stopping them from seeing your content? Diba? Wala, kasi it's public, right? You can't filter people, right? You can just tailor your
Mm-mm.
content for certain people, but there's no actually stopping forces or filtering forces that would stop people from from consuming your content, right? Right. So yeah, so it blurs the lines of context talaga. Being so public, right? So yun yung mga stuff that we are dealing with now. Also, because of that social influence, because of the blurred lines of context in the public platform talaga, there is also no force or rules that would stop people from chiming in, yun nga, however talaga misinformed they are, right? Diba? So hindi nila iniisip yung consequences to their actions, to the stuff they say, right? So that's why, diba, there are certain trends now, like the cancel culture, you know, there's no stopping people from doing cancel culture. So right, so that's why those new trends are coming in, especially in new platforms, and we look for ways on how to communicate, right? So, what does this tell us, right? First of all, I think that social influence, it's a law of nature. It's a law, like gravity, right? It's just there, right? It's a common fact of the universe, right? It's not something that we can define. There is no formula to it, and it offers multiple realities to certain content, certain anything, right? And social influence in the digital era, it blurs the lines of context, like I mentioned. There are a lot of emerging behaviors that allows us to and a lot of platforms that allows public forum to be instant and be more accessible, right? So social influence now is becoming more uh, diverse, if I may say, you know. Before kasi, di ba, our context is usually just the content and relationship levels. Ngayon may different context into relationship level naman na virtual lang, di ba? So yun, so marami ng
Mm-mm.
types of relationship levels, right? And then, another thing that I could take away from this is the public social platforms made successful communications or content so more unpredictable. So before, ang hirap ng makaisip ng ways to advertise a certain product, mahirap ng kumuha ng insights. But now it's even harder now because yun nga, maraming emerging behaviors, di ba? So yeah, that's what I wanted to share also in
Yeah.
connecting our lessons together. So there. So because we are dealing with so much clutter in social media and a lot of platforms, it's for us as communicators, as marketing people, right? We need to be able to find a way for our message to stand out from the noise. So yeah, so stand out from the disruption, right? So the concept we would talk about this week, as mentioned, is about word of mouth. Right. So as mentioned, this is still part of our course on viral marketing and contagious content. So we now I wanted to have a discussion on how we can harness word of mouth and the power of word of mouth, because um, in marketing, it says that only 7% of online is word of mouth. So we can take in word of mouth in the traditional sense na yun nga, like the photos na binubulan talaga, person to person, but there is
Yeah.
also word of mouth and digital. And what you want to do is make people convince themselves so that when they are outside the digital platforms, they talk about certain brand or your message or the content that you want, right? So the beauty of this, why we want to do that is for the cost for the people to advocate for you, for your brand. So for example, your customer would really go out of their way to recommend you, to review your brand, or to really advocate for you, to tell people na this brand is amazing, right? So yeah, that's what you want. That's
Mm-mm.
the behavior you want, to go beyond digital, right? So that's what you want to do. Okay. Studies also share that word of mouth generates twice the sales of traditional ads. It's not actually the case. I think it's not the case in the Philippines because we are still very conservative, country. But if we are looking at developments, in the next years, I think digital would be up there. So as you can see, the sources of the brands, the sources of where we discover brands is still television. Next one is social media, and then right about in the middle, and then yung word of mouth, the recommendations, right, via social media and word of mouth recommendation. It's still there. So as mentioned, it's still very
Mm-mm.
traditional. Traditional way of marketing. That's the tool that really gives us more conversions, more sales, right? So there. In this course, actually, I would discuss 6 steps that drive to talk about and share all sorts of information or your content. So, what are those drivers, the common drivers that really push people to share your content or talk about your content and really to advocate for your brand? But before that, I want to discuss more about word of mouth online. So word of mouth in traditional sense, as mentioned, it is just content or messages that are spread from one person to another. Right, so in yung common connotation of word of mouth, but there is also a modern day word of mouth where it describes both targeted efforts and naturally occurring instances where users share their satisfaction with a brand. So everywhere else you can do word of mouth. As mentioned, there is 7% of word of mouth online through blogs, reviews,
Mm-mm.
recommendations, right? So a lot of referrals. There is also definitely tools for reviews in Facebook, for example. In Sortlist, for example, they really
Mm-mm.
bump up the value of having reviews, right? That would help you
Yeah.
create conversions, right? Even Google has reviews, right? For small, medium enterprises or even big businesses, right? And also the emergence of influencers. So that's why I think influencers are are emerging or actually booming now because of word of mouth. The idea of having word of mouth as a marketing tool, right? So yeah, hopefully that's clear now. So that's what we mean by
Yep.
a word of mouth and how we look into word of mouth as digital natives, as digital experts, right? And also, I highlight this study from Nielsen. 92% of people trust recommendations from friends and family over any type of advertising. So actually, word of mouth, as mentioned, has a higher rate or higher chance of conversion into sales. Do you agree?
Yeah.
If
Yep.
I
Yep.
recommend something to
Definitely.
you, right? So for example, you're looking for tumblers, and you have a short list of 5 tumblers, and then I tell you buy this
Mm-hmm.
one, I use this one, diba? You are more likely
Yeah.
to buy
Mm-mm.
that.
Kasi ano most likely kasi if brands yung nag-advertise, ang thinking agad is everything is filtered already. So,
Yeah.
what the brands are actually sharing are only the good things, di ba? Siyempre, they want people to buy. And kapag ka friends mo yung talagang sabi sa'yo to try this out, ganyan. So, it's actually a good way talaga of you being convinced kasi you don't have this feeling of being sold to because people hate that, 'di ba? And kapag ka friends or colleagues mo lang yung nagsabi, definitely worth a try kasi they invest into it, 'di ba?
Yep, I
I
agree.
think,
Yes,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Same goes with the influencers kasi lately, mas madami talagang nagre-review ng mga food businesses, nagpapadala si food businesses. So, they want influencers to try their products. And from there, they promote or they review it. Parang, oh, come try this product, ganyan. It's so good, it's delicious, ganyan. So, I think more influencers now are doing that,
Mhm.
reviews. So, yun.
Yeah, it helps brands also. Say.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true
Mm-mm.
also with ads kasi you don't always know if they're telling the truth, diba? So, most
Yeah.
people medyo yeah, indifferent sila with ads kasi like you said, i-highlight nila yung better things sa kanila. Like,
Mm-hmm.
my laptop
Mm-mm.
is skinny, but the battery life is short. Diba? Hindi naman sasabihin yun. Right?
Yeah.
Right. So that makes sense, right? So I think what
Mm-mm.
we are harnessing actually the power of word of mouth currently, but definitely you would see some disruption also, especially now na ang dami ng influencers nga kumukuha rin naman sila ng bayad. So what's the
Mm-mm.
difference of that from an ad, right? So yun yung mga next level of disruption that we are going to face or kind of facing already, no, na baka hindi na nagiging authentic kasi diba the idea of word of mouth that is that you can trust it, that it's
Mm-mm.
authentic, but if you are getting paid to give word of mouth, diba, yun nga, through bloggers, through influencers, baka they're so much manipulated already by press releases, right? They don't
Mm-mm.
necessarily create content that they review the product as authentic or as personal as ever baka, diba, nagka-copy paste na lang sila ng press release. So, we might expect
Mm-mm.
some sort of disruption also in that sense. No? Yon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as mentioned, I would be discussing 6 steps. Actually, 5 lang yung i-discuss talaga natin deeply, but there's actually 6. Ito yung ginamit nila. Step framework, so STEPP, and then actually steps siya, so niremove ko na lang yan kasi the last part is stories. It's better
Mm.
if you angle or draft stories to make your message, your content more palatable. Diba? That makes sense. We know that already. Yeah, tell stories. So yeah, so
Mm-mm.
we'll remove that already. But this step framework, these are psychological drivers naman that influence what people talk about and share. So before, yung lesson natin is the recipe, right? Be simple, be unexpected. Ito naman, psychological drivers. So why certain things are being more shared or are more top of mind, right? Than others, than other messages. So let's go to the first one. Right. So first driver, psychological driver is social currency. So we all know about status symbol, right? So there are certain things in one person's life that signifies who they are for other people, right? So it's important
Yep.
for us to be aware of how people perceive us, right? Especially now in social media, right? Your social media now is the highlight reel of your life, that you only share things that make you better than others, make you feel smarter, make you feel more beautiful, diba? That's your status symbol. What you post, what you share online on your platforms, that's what you want others to see who you are, diba? Yun yung gusto mong makita ng iba na kung sino ka. So people psychologically, they really pass things on if it makes them better or make them look good, right? So yeah, ganun talaga tayo. That's very a human nature for us, right? To share things that make us better. And then what we share, it signals who we are. So for example, I share a lot of political agendas, political ideas, right? So that's who I am as a person, and that's what I want my friends or my connections see me or look at me like that, right? Okay, so how can we make people feel like insiders is really make them feel different from others. So we have that notion that we want to be different than others. So what do we usually post in social media? Diba? Na filter natin usually gusto natin ibang angle naman, ibang spot naman, diba? Yan yung mga sinishare talaga natin because that's what we want to share it. That's our psychological driver, what we share things. So, how do you think brands leverage social currencies, right? Our need to our need for validation and our need to identify ourselves to to a specific or specific symbol or specific social currency. Sa webinar ko. Si Kuya Ging, kakaloka. So that's what people tap on talaga. When we buy certain stuff, certain brands, if we look into certain brands that we want to buy, we want to purchase, we want to be able to associate ourselves with that brand. So an example.
Yeah.
So there are my examples. So first one, Victoria's Secret. Who do you think are the people who buys Victoria's Secret?
Celebrities, fit persons.
Diba? Yung people with bodies like supermodels, right? That's what the brand associates itself with. Yes, skinny, tall, supermodel-esque people now. So that's the some sort of exclusivity of Victoria's Secret, that you have to be this people to buy this. So if you're a common person and you want to feel, if you think yourself that you are like a supermodel, you would buy Victoria's Secret, right? That makes sense.
I will.
Yes.
Right. So that's how actually brands align themselves with social currencies, right? It's not always about the product itself, right? The practical value of the product, but they align themselves with the social status or a social symbol talaga that would associate their brand with. So for example, if you think of Yeezy, you think about being street, right? So now it's a trend na when you are rich and you want to and you want to look rich, you have to look street. So, in-associate ni using sarili niya with being street, right? So, now, tingnan mo naman, sobrang simple lang the things that you can buy in Uniqlo, diba? Or some bench, I don't know, diba? And then you mark up the prices. That's easy. I mean, that's how they play on the social currency of street style, right? And also, I think social currencies doesn't always have to be a status symbol. Sometimes I think, uh, and a better way of associating yourself with social currency is to have that brand purpose. So as we mentioned in our proposals, really, this is our main agenda always to have for our brands to have a certain purpose. So that's what Nike is doing very well. So they don't just associate themselves with interests like travel, interests like sports, right? It's not only the way you look, the way you feel when you wear a brand, but they associate themselves with social issues, with political issues, and deeper really topics and deeper social currencies like women empowerment, racism, and a lot more. So I think that's a more powerful way of associating yourself with a certain purpose or a certain social currency. Because now, especially Gen Z, millennials, no, we find a lot of messages from brands. We expect them to better the markets that they are serving in. So I think Nike have been doing that for years, no, and I think
Yes.
a better way of harnessing social currency, as mentioned. If you agree, yep, that's the concept of social currency. Hope that's clear. Okay, the next one, another driver are triggers. Um, Triggers actually, example. What do you think of when you see a rainbow?
Right.
Mhm.
LGBT.
Yes, exactly.
LGBT community.
Yes, so that's a certain trigger, di ba? So parang you associate LGBT or pride with rainbow so much, right? So when you see a rainbow, yun na yung trigger mo, LGBT, right? So same way before, di ba? If you remember yung Friday of Rebecca Black, this is the tag to be the worst music ever produced in the modern society. I don't know. That's, diba, 10 years ago? 10, 15,
Mm-mm.
I'm not sure. So, nung lumabas yan, di ba, sabi nila, sobrang pangit ng music video. It's, I think, one of the first memes ever created, right? So, yan yung mga time na bago lang yung memes, right? So, but,
Mm-mm.
if you, even though it's a sore side niya, and then, it's not quality music, every Friday, you still think of this word, this music, di ba? Kasi, you associate now yourself, you associate now Fridays with Rebecca Black, right? Through the memes, through the music video, and it's widespread of, I don't know, public mileage, right? So yeah, that's how triggers work. Okay, so these are triggers are actually reminders of top of mind things like um for brands, for example, you want to be able to create a trigger for your brand. So for example, this one. Let's go to the next slide. Wait, what does that mean? Diba?
Have a break, have a kit.
Yes, exactly. So the trigger of KitKat is break. So yun yung dinevelop nila and cultivate nila for years, right? Na if it's break time, have a
It's
KitKat.
Kika time.
Yes, it's KitKat time. So you ask yourself, right, as a consumer, where did you first hear this, or how often do you hear this, and how did you find out about this? Itong KitKat, have a break, have a KitKat.
I think sa TV ko to una nakita.
Diba? But
And then, ang dami nilang placement.
yes, exactly.
Yun yung commercial.
Mm.
Yeah, parang but you think to yourself, why do you know this so much? The common knowledge to any people, right? If have a break, have a, diba? It's always like that, right?
Mm-mm.
Even even sa mga small kids, they know this already. So that's how powerful their messaging is, how powerful their association is, and their trigger na. If you say break, you would think of Kit Kat, diba? So parang
Mm-mm.
they associated the word break and Kit Kat together so much that it's become a household knowledge, or a common knowledge to any type of person, any normal person, diba? So yun. How about this? When you're looking at a
Right,
prescription,
mid.
diba? If you're looking at the prescription na sobrang taas, inisip mo, feeling ko may mas generic medicine dito. Anong una mong gagawin or una mong maiisip, di ba? Huwag mahihiyang magtanong.
Mm-mm.
Kahit mahihiyang magtanong, may right med ba nito? So, di ba? Gusto naman
Oo.
how well they created a trigger for their brand. No? So, if makakita ka ng mahal na prescription, magtatanong muna ako, baka may
Right na that.
baka may cheaper generic,
Mm-mm.
right? So that's what they did so well, and why it's really shared, right? So that's really the effect of word of mouth, really also having these types of tactics, if I may, right? So clear naman yan. So sobrang, di ba, ang dali lang
Yeah.
ng trigger. So another example that they give is actually peanut butter. Usually you think of jam, right? Peanut butter and jam, right? Yung mga ganun, a certain trigger. So that's what you want
Mm-mm.
you for your brand also. Right? Especially if you want to be consistent, if you have that opportunity to be present in all media platforms and all media touch points, diba? Be consistent in your message, have that certain. Again, it would play also it would also help you to be simple and tell people one thing, right? Hindi yung
Mm-mm.
sasabihin sa kanila na my brand is this one, this one, this one, this is it has a free yan. Diba? It tells people one thing na if it's break time, you have Kit Kat. Or pag mahal yung medicine mo, magtanong ka. Diba? For right now.
Mm-mm.
It's this one thing, it's simple, right? So, that's naging top of mind siya. Right. Another driver for our steps is, as I've mentioned, is emotion. So I've mentioned before that the more we care, the more we are likely to share and take action. But not all emotions, not all types of emotions elicit certain actions. No, sometimes it's just a feeling of contentment, and then there's no action involved. So it's really not enough to have content that are functional information, but we need to also take into account the emotional core of people, that most of us really would think emotionally rather than intellectually, no.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so as I've mentioned, a lot of certain emotions stick, but and those emotions would really get people to spread a message. So my example here is that if you remember what triggered Black Lives Matter, it's because of the disgust of people from the video that spread through social media of
Mm-mm.
the white cop really murdering the black person niya na the victim of the case. So that drove people to go to the streets really, and to really protest racism in America, right? So now it's a bigger and widely spread message across the world now, right? And then also that's what you want to think about also when we need certain actions from our consumers or our audience. For example, we want them to sign a petition, but why you have to really elicit that your emotional core on why you are telling people to create or to do certain actions like sign a petition. Because it's not enough, as mentioned, to have that functional information. You have to drive through that emotional core, right? So it's something to think about also with our advocacy campaigns, right?
Mhm.
Right. And another thing that we actually talked about this earlier na with our anecdote with the podcast. No, it's there is no really stopping people from chiming in because we are in a platform of instantness. Being really
Mm-mm.
visible by anyone. So for you to be shared, really, that's one of the major things that you need to do is to be public and make your information uh, more accessible by the public as much as you can. So people are likely to share your message if you communicate it with a public medium. So I think this is very common sense naman, diba? It's very obvious. You have to be in public, diba? And also, um, again, the social influence also would play a lot with being public, right? Um, uh, if you remember, one of the things in social influence is that people like to imitate other people, right? So even though we know the right answer, we want to imitate other people for answers, right? So we look to other people for certain things to validate if we're doing something right, diba? If you remember the example, yung lining up, diba, na video.
Mm-mm.
Right? So if ginagawa ng other people, the more likely that I will do it myself, right? So ganun din. So that's why I think the concept of challenges, it really para siya it's a good uh, indicator of effectivity of being public. So, yun nga, so ang daming nagtitiktok ngayon because, yun nga, people want to imitate each other. So, I mean, it's now common knowledge na if you want to do something na magva-viral, gawin mo siya in the right platform. So, that's what TikTok was made for, diba? Yun yung pinaka purpose niya, diba? Right, Jel? You want to copy
Yes.
people what they do and then do it yourself. So yun yung value kasi nun sa atin na we want to do things that other people do, right? So again, yeah. And then yeah, if you are easier to be seen or to be located in the public platforms, the more it's easier for other people to imitate you, right? So yeah,
Yep.
so your shareability would be more likely, right? Yeah, and then the last P in our step framework is practical value. So sometimes naman, pure useful information uh, is also shareable, especially if they are very timely, So meron lang certain information that you want to absorb and you want to share, right? So
Mm-mm.
as brands, if you know that your information is very vital, it's very practical, and you feel that a lot of consumers would benefit with it, you have to package it to be more shareable, like framing it in a content or using the right medium of really showcasing that content. So for us as digital natives, again, as digital experts, walang one size fit all kasi in your contents. If you feel that, for me, no, if you feel that your content is practical and may practical value siya, you package it in a certain way that would more likely to be shared as mentioned. So for example, I have information on rethinking communications. I won't package it in a certain way na mahirap siyang maintindihan for other people. So hindi ko siya, for example, ilalagay sa radio or sa TV where very limited lang yung airtime mo, right? So I would
Mm-mm.
find other ways or other formats where I can share the information that practical value. So may it be a podcast, a blog, a social media post, diba? You have to be able to pinpoint that format best to communicate your value, your practical value. So it's not always 'Di ba? Lalagay mo lahat ng practical value mo in a TV ad. Yung TV ad niya 30 seconds lang, 'di ba? So baka hindi siya para dun. So yun, you have to while most product services they have practical value, you have to be able to package it to be more shareable, right? So yeah, framing is important, re-angling, and rethinking, yeah. Right. So my example here actually yan, eye-catching statistics, one of the practical values that is more likely to be shared, no? So yeah, for example, yung kay Maya Angelou, that people make 90% of their decisions based on the emotions. So parang it's an eye-catching statistics, it has practical value. But you have to be able to, again, to package it a certain way para i-share siya ng other people. Right. Okay. So another example is that, yeah, so mga infographics, for example, I've talked about already why I want a standing desk because yeah, nakita ko to eh. So nakita ko may practical value yung desk, and then nakita ko siya it was packaged in such a way that that I understood and I valued more. So by infographics, diba? So it's more eye-catching. So ganyan communicate the practical value of standing desk. Another example is, for example, yung Flow na app. This one is used by a lot of to check their cycles, their menstruation cycles, and also yun, may practical value yung app also, and then marami din siyang a practical value na different formats inside the app. Not only yung calendar, but you can also do chats with people who or women who uses the platform as well. And then even meron siyang blogs para parang one-stop shop siya of having practical value. So yun yung one of the things that we need to consider. Yan. So yeah, yun yung last last driver of steps framework na. So hopefully you got a little bit of insight from there, and then you can, as mentioned, you can always search more, connect with each other, concepts that we have talked about for the past weeks, right? Past month. Yeah. So hopefully you gathered insights there. Yeah. So before I conclude, with my final slides, do you have any comments, questions on steps framework?
Very clear naman so far, Miss Glo. So yun.
If you find
also, I actually
go ahead.
I actually like it kasi parang minsan we never know that brands are actually doing this na pala. Parang unintentionally na nagagawa na nila pala yun sa'yo. But ikaw, you're still looking up into them, di ba?
Exactly. That's the power of your brands and your communication.
Yeah.
I mean, the brands talaga, they use it so much, yung psychological and what is human to us, they really use it for their tactics, ganun niya. So they drive into that. So hindi lang sila nagbebenta, they also play into our psychological drivers. So that's what we do also, especially as community. Yeah, so it's important for us to really know. Okay. So as I've mentioned, if you, for example, may naisip kang trigger for you, you can share it with our Viber group, so just so we can keep the conversation going, right? So we can also validate some of the points of the course, right? So yeah, if I missed something, that a good example, for practical value, ganyan. So yeah, feel free to share, because I mean, we are consuming media more than ever now, diba? So yeah, feel free to yeah. So, okay, before tayo paalisin ulit ni Zoom, okay, I wanted to say, right? So, as we know today, this is what basically our feed looks like, right? If you agree, para na siyang a marketplace or like a highway
Yeah.
for diba? You really have that clutter, especially now that online traffic is high, right? Platforms are so much easier to use for the benefit of the brands, right? Of businesses. Um, because also, as mentioned, today it's easier for brands and marketing people, communicators to reach their audience, but also reach them in such a personal level. So before, diba, before the digital era, marketing would be about assumptions of your your psychological drivers, ganyan, mga ganun. But now it's easy for
Mm-mm.
them to collect actual data from us, right? So
Yeah.
it's really a level of knowing us personally because of our data and what we bring up to this public platforms. So because of that, no, it resulted into really clutter, right? Really, isipin mo, itong mga billboards na to, lahat yan interest mo, di ba? Lahat yan tailored fit to your interest, uh, your interest as a person, di ba? So, hindi lang siya ganito. So, di ba, in a marketplace, pipili ka pa kung ano, kung saan ka interested. Now, your social media, it's all based on your interest, right? So, if you agree, right? So, it's very tailored,
Mm-mm.
very targeted.
Yeah.
But, still, while it's already your interest, there's still clutter on what you still want to consume, right? So, hit and miss pa rin siya. So, there are certain messages kasi that still stick and certain messages are just tastier than others, di ba? So, for example, yun nga, yung right mid. Why do you think yung generica, yung other pharmaceutical na ads, hindi siya nag-stick, but yung right mid nag-stick siya, di ba? There's just certain messages talaga that are tastier, kumbaga, mas maganda or mas preferred by people, right?
Pasok.
And then usually it's really unpredictable what those are, kahit ilagay mo na lahat ng recipe, lahat ng step framework into your marketing,
Mm-mm.
but we'll never know if it would work talaga when we roll it out, right?
Mm-mm.
So so crafting contagious content talaga, building a buzz, really it's still something that is emerging or something that is really changing over time depending on how advanced we are getting also. So even our word of mouth, it also advances. So before our idea of word of mouth, traditional lang siya, diba? So now there is word of mouth
Yeah.
in digital, and then we can harness that. So we have to take into account those things also. Right. So daming concepts, right, into word of mouth, but also they branch out into the clutter of marketing, right? So so it's important for us to, as mentioned, still know the fundamentals, right? So
Mm-mm.
so as we know, we already discussed the frameworks, the steps, right, the recipes. That brings us a lot of power now as communicators, as people who are mediators for brands, right? So it gives us a lot of power. And as you know, great power comes great responsibility,
Comes with it.
right? So especially now that now your communicators, as mentioned, the marketers who use digital platforms, who use public platforms, right, for the products, for the services of certain brands, certain advocacies. So we have to have that responsibility, right, in communicating. No? So um, this is my conclusion actually, because social media platforms have made it easier for us, the brands, the marketers, no, to communicate in a more instant and little more abrasive manner, so to speak. No, it's a little more medyo nakakatakot kasi we are dealing with data, right? A lot of um, uh, a lot of the data, personal information that allowed us to really specifically target people that are already interested with us or really um, fits the description of our targeted consumers. We carefully tailor our content content for them, our campaigns that they would appreciate. And now also that it's done in such a massive level, right? It's now resulted into certain abuse, right, of the platform, right? So if you remember the intention of platforms like Facebook, platforms like Instagram, right? It's really created to 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 build and strengthen connections with different relationship levels that you have. So, but it's still a personal level. The the intention, I think, of Facebook nga, yun nga, of social media platforms. The intention is really to make connections, but now that it is used now in such a massive level, we are
Yeah.
facing a lot of disruption on its usage and how it is being misused, where it results to certain hate, right? Uh, yeah, misuse of privacy, and that the government or a certain what they call this ruling or authoritative bodies, they cannot, and they don't have the capacity to really control what's happening in these platforms because it's very new, diba? It's such the price of innovating communication channels or media, so there is actually a misuse, right? So a few examples here really is, I mean, Facebook. You know our issue with Facebook, and now if you see the hashtag now, yung stop hate for profit.
Boycott.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
boycott Facebook
Mm-mm.
ads. So now
Yeah.
dipping yung profit of Facebook because a lot of um, big companies, big brands in the US, they're
Yeah.
boycotting
Mm-mm.
ads for 3 months. That would really, I mean, brands really spend a lot for
Yeah.
Facebook. And yan yung naging bread and butter of
Mm-mm.
Facebook. That's why in the past couple of years, no, it's uh, Facebook has been altering their platform to get more money basically from brands or from companies
Mm-mm.
that can pay and they that needed the data of people to really tailor and target in the most optimal way their ads to certain people, right? So um that's what we are saying, and I want to really focus on as we become more knowledgeable of certain uh, ideas like the word of mouth, the ideas of communications, and then using
Mm-mm.
technological drivers to your content to better your content. We still have to have that level of integrity, right? As we
Mm-mm.
use these platforms, right? We still have that level of vigilance also as people who use the platform as consumers, right? So, diba? Kasi the price of convenience and entertainment is there, right? They get your data, right? You're you are not spending a lot, but you don't know the consequences of
Mm-mm.
that. You have to have that in mind also, and yeah, like I mentioned, that level of vigilance also, and also I think here comes into play yung what we thought we talked about before, yung power of knowledge, where you use
Mm-mm.
knowledge, diba, to not exploit people, but also but definitely to share more your knowledge, diba, cultivate learning, cultivate critical thinking, and rather than exploiting people, as mentioned. So yeah, as we
Mm-mm.
become more knowledgeable, let's have that uh, integrity is still in place, right? So, I mean, I think you would know what's good and bad, what's right from wrong, right? So have that still in mind and always be ethical. So I end with this line. This one I got from a friend who recently was sworn into being a lawyer. Uh, now, I think important to realize for them kasi na they are the lawyers who are sworn in the time of a pandemic, in the time where social
Mm-mm.
unrest is high, where cybercrime is really becoming a norm. So I think yeah, and the milestone of having those lawyers nga who resigned in a virtual way pa, I think history would
Mm-mm.
be looking at them very uh, strictly, kumbaga. Say, yun nga, yeah, so I share this quote: "You are personally responsible for becoming more ethical than the society you grew up in." Right? So that's my mantra actually from when I saw this. Na even though you can do something to better yourself in such an ethical manner, you shouldn't, right? Even if you can, right? If that makes sense, and hopefully that's something
Mm-mm.
that we consider also along the way as we progress our careers, our lives, our personal development. So have that integrity always uh, with your knowledge that you are getting, right? And pursuing more learnings, right? So you always have that being ethical than the society you grew up in. Yeah. Yeah, so that's my
Yeah.
week. That's my lecture for